Welcome back, listening audience, to Guns and Mental Health. I am co-host Jake Wiskerson, led by regular large full-time host Michael Sedini. And today we have with us the Allegiance Project Foundation folks, some of whom anyway. And we are joined by Luis Sauce, Matthew Easter, and Yehuda Remer, also known as the Pew Pew Jew. Friend of the show, Yehuda Remer, the Pew Pew Jew. But I think I need you guys to introduce yourselves to everybody before we launch into what this is and why you're here. So maybe we'll just go left to right on my screen. Luis, you want to tell everybody who you are?
Yes, sir. I'm the director of operations for Allegiance Project Security. I did 21 years in the military, most of that being done in special operations. I also shot with the Army Marksmanship Unit as an instructor in the instructor training group. Pretty much we just taught anybody who had anything to do with combat rifle, pistols, stuff like that. Within special operations, I was a sniper for most of the time. And then towards the end of my career, I ended up going to being a intel guy of all things, which if you look at me, I was like rock, like you might have found me like, trying to start like a fire with a rock over off the side on a loincloth, but I don't know why they chose that for me. But I did pretty good during that and then got out. And then my boss, Matt, found me doing the vet thing at a bar one time and we just hit it off from there.
Bars are great places to find people, I found.
It was a really weird conversation. He was like, hey, you look like was a Wolverine, and I was not in a great frame of mind then, and so I was like, "Thanks, buddy." So I probably sounded like Wolverine more like, but
it's like making fun of somebody's last name because it's an Easter bunny.
Yeah. I was immediately because I'm only like 5'6", and so like I was immediately like, it's because I'm short, isn't it? So, but that's me.
Okay. I mean, I got a head full of jokes and they have to do with last names.
I've heard all of them.
I mean, I got a last name with Skirchin, like Whiskers and Whisker Chin, and we got
Whisker
Sauce
Chin, yeah.
and Easter.
I don't think I had this big of a beard then.
It's better now. Great. So Matt, Easter Bunny.
Gentlemen, yeah, thank you. My name is Matthew Easter, obviously. I'm the founder of Allegiance Project Foundation. I was really inspired to start this organization because my wife is a dedicated elementary school teacher. And after the events of Uvalde, taking my background in security and being able to develop teams and systems and leadership, I wanted to come up with a creative solution to bridge the gap between communities and schools to provide sustainable solutions for school safety. So I founded the Allegiance Project Foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit that hires veterans for school security and provides specialized training for schools. The big thing that we wanted to provide as a nonprofit is not be another nonprofit that's constantly asking for money and has its handouts, its handout to other people, doing another fundraiser drive, and then not really knowing where your money's going. So we took a very unique and cutting edge approach to school safety, and our nonprofit owns our security company, Allegiance Project Security. So all of our funds and 100% of our profits from the company feed into our school safety initiatives, creating a true sustainable approach to school safety. Our security company focuses on ministry safety, private executive protection, and then we do consulting as well. So using people like Luis with his background, and then our other board members with background in federal law enforcement and from the Secret Service, we're able to take all of these experts in their field and put them together and start looking at how we can solve some of these issues, and more importantly, making them affordable for all too. So it's the first organization of its kind, and we want to really build partnerships in the community. The primary hope for this wasn't just solving the issue of school safety and helping veterans and serving our community, was it really inspiring Americans across the country to take our model and be able to replicate that to protect children across the country. That's what we do, and that's a little bit about who we are. Yehuda is our new director of outreach, and he's been incredible with connecting us with the right people. And I'll let him do his intro next.
So I'm the Allegiance Project Foundation director of outreach. You guys know I've been on the show a couple times, and I've built my entire brand and network for the last 9 years exactly for a situation like this, where I can actually help a organization like Allegiance Project in order to use my network and introduce them to people, because I don't just see it as a organization that helps veterans, which obviously they do, transitioning veterans out of the military, but I also see it as a real solution to school shootings, a real Second Amendment centric solution to school shootings. And for someone who has been in the Second Amendment advocacy world for the last 9 years, it really speaks to my heart. Also, as my wife is a teacher. So it's a organization that I'm very passionate about, and an organization that I'm very proud to be part of.
This is really exciting for me too, because for as much as everybody knows I'm in the mental health community, I've spent a great deal of time in education. One of my graduate degrees is in educational leadership. It happens to be in higher ed admin, but I've spent a lot of time in the K-12 arena, including helping form and launch and maintain my kids' own K-12 charter school here in Nevada. So I've got a lot of pioneered school-based mental health in several areas. And so this is very near and dear to my heart. I don't like soft targets, and I have many questions. So I guess we should just jump right in, unless Mike, you want to say anything to round out this introduction?
No, I just want to say, it was a pleasure meeting you guys at SHOT Show. Sorry it was so brief and in passing, right? Because that's how SHOT Show is. But I was really excited to have you guys on to talk about this subject, because like Jake, I have a lot of questions, and I think I'm going to be kind of a counterpoint because we've had guests come on this show that have said some really interesting things, because we have all walks of life come on here. So I'm just fascinated as guys who are doing it well and being successful with it. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, but that's all I wanted to say for now. Go ahead, Jake, fire away.
All righty. So top of mind, I think, is I want to know how long you've been around and how many schools you've contacted. I'm presuming you're from Texas, based
Yes,
on
sir.
Yehuda's connection and your cowboy hat. But for the listening audience who can't see the video, Matt's wearing a very swanky looking cowboy hat and a very sexy beard, I might add. So how long has it been going? How many schools are you in right now? How many personnel do you employ? And I get the structure of the organization is, foundation feeds the staffing part of it. But tell me a little bit about the what reach that you have so far, I guess.
So we just hit our second year in business for both the foundation and the security company. The first year was trying to figure out the operation systems, how we're going to, launch everything, move forward. And I mistakenly thought that everyone was going to be throwing money at us, and I was going to have more funding and donations, as any new nonprofit does. You think, man, it's going to be hard to track all the money we're going to get. We need to make sure that we're, stewarding this to the best of our ability and, really respecting our donors. And that just wasn't the case. We barely raised anything our first year. And I think we were going about it all wrong. We weren't focusing on building our own funding source. So that first year was figuring out all of the ins and outs of running a nonprofit, your board of directors, our 5-year goals. And then year 2 was really focusing and launching the security company. And the security company had already been operational in several churches and schools, but it was really nailing everything down, how we operate, these two separate, on paper, they're the same entity, but these two separate businesses. So we've grown into churches with schools attached to them all over the DFW Metroplex. We're in a lot of the private Christian schools, and then we have a private college that we serve, and we're looking at growing into potentially 3 to 4 other small districts this year. And one of the big things we wanted to make sure was that we weren't scaling at a level that would water down our quality, because everything goes into hiring, training, and then backgrounds, and making sure it's the right fit for that person, and then who's going to be the supervisor at that location. So there's so much that goes into it. So year 3 is really going to be focusing on getting our solutions with funding and donations through the nonprofit and grant writing into more schools, and these new schools that we're going to be hitting in the 2026 fall. So with that, now that we're in our second year of business, we can actually start applying for grants. A lot of people don't know that you can't apply for certain grants or most grants until you have X amount of money in the bank, and then you've been in business as a nonprofit for 2 years, because they don't just want to be shelling money through organizations that aren't going to use it wisely.
Yeah. That's good because that's never happened before in this country, and we definitely aren't uncovering a whole bunch of fraud anywhere at all.
No.
So good on you. I appreciate the due diligence there. I want to ask about the training stuff, but first, before we get there, I'm curious how you recruit in the people that you use, but also recruit in the schools. Because in my mind, there's basically going to be two camps. There's the camp that you just described, which is the private, often religious associated, who are all in because they often are, I guess, they're exposed to a little higher risk than normal by virtue of their affiliations, but also they're more nimble, and they can afford to do things outside the lines, so to speak. But then there's the public institutions. You mentioned school districts. So I'm curious about that, where they're going to be bogged down in bureaucracy at minimum, and at maximum, they're going to be plagued with people who just don't like the idea, right? So how are you finding the recruitment both into your personnel as well as the client base, I guess you'd say?
So yeah, with the personnel, that's pretty easy. Is we're partnered with a couple of other organizations that help place veterans, and we're able to connect with those organizations like Texas Veterans Commission. I have a connection through the VA, and then Lewis is getting us a connection with Three Rangers Foundation. So with his background being being a ranger, it's kind of a no-brainer is if we can get some of these guys into our pipeline as they ETS and more focused on giving guys purpose after the military, giving them a new mission and telling them that you're going to be protecting schools and protecting children, which is our nation's most valuable resource. It really changes the game and really opens us up to having an unlimited pipeline of people that we can use to protect schools. I'll let Louise talk about the training on that side after that. And we also have our other board member, Steve. He was 22 years in the Secret Service. He's not on this call right now, but he handles a lot of our threat mitigation training, and then a lot of our, if we're doing a threat and vulnerability assessment for a school, all those things that schools really need, helping them develop an, emergency operations plan. So with approaching schools and school districts, I wanted to develop a program and an organization that not only filled so many gaps that schools needed, but something that they couldn't say no to. Now, fortunately, we're in the state of Texas, and the state of Texas mandates that every school have armed personnel on site. So the issue there is funding. And then the second issue is there's a lack of law enforcement. Their numbers have been down. Our numbers are down nationwide. So there's always a shortage of law enforcement officers. So because the state passed this legislation called House Bill 3, it now mandates that every public school have armed personnel. But I knew that there are going to be issues there because there's always state mandates and reactive responses without funding. So schools were only given $15,000 a school and $100 per student to fill this gap in safety. And I don't have to go into the numbers with anyone, or no one has to be an accountant to know that that's not going to cover the bill. So then you have school districts, dipping into their operational budgets. For the first time, we had a local district go into a budget deficit of 1.5 million just to meet this state compliance and these mandates. So that's what we're really trying to do, is we're trying to support schools and help them with compliance with House Bill 3 more than anything else. So by being able to channel funding from grants, from donors, from local communities, and then our own security company, we're able to fill these gaps and put qualified personnel in there, because what we're also fighting against is school districts wanting to go with the low-level security companies that don't have training, their people don't have backgrounds, and they're just the cheapest option so schools can check that box. And unfortunately, that's the approach a lot of districts take, is they just want to check a box because funding's always the number one holdup. So as long as we check these boxes and we're fine, we're going to be safe. It's never going to happen to us. So we're trying to create long-term solutions for schools in order to provide excellent security and excellent protection without them having to go with a low-level security company or anything like that.
Yeah. So you talk about this pipeline of candidates that we want veterans, which I think is awesome, because transitioning back into regular life seems to be the ongoing theme with every veteran that we've ever had on, right? It's like we haven't solved how to really fix and attack that issue, but
Yeah, we haven't.
Yeah, right. Like it just it's a reoccurring thing. Every veteran like that comes on the show, I make it a point to ask them, with all the veteran groups out there that are catering to veterans and suicide and mental health, where is it going wrong? Because we're just guns. We just have the Venn diagram overlapping with the veterans. We look at guns and mental health, but there's so many veteran focused ones, and it just seems like we're missing that mark with the disproportionate amount of veterans that are taking their own lives and struggling coming back. But that transition thing, I mean, that is clearly an issue. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and this is for anybody here, is funding. Yeah, I totally hear you, brother. Like I remember starting Walk the Talk America, and I remember talking to my CFO one day, and I go, how hard could it be to get 50 gun companies to donate $2,000? Like that was the dumbest thing that could have flown out of my mouth. Like when looking back, because now if someone said that to me, I would fall out of this chair. But funding, yes, huge issue. And I hope one day you get to where you want to be, because I think what you're doing is so awesome. And it's Texas, man. Come on. We got oil millionaires out there that this could be like a small donation to make this successful, to have real people, trained people guarding our children. But the scheduling aspect of this seems like that's another nightmare, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you think of how many schools you have in Texas. And then, I mean, these people that are guarding the schools it's almost like substitute teachers, right? Like somebody's not going to be able to work on a Wednesday. And like, how do you handle the scheduling or are you able to do it because you're kind of growing small? But it just seems like that would be a bear in itself, to be figuring out who's going to guard what school and the hours. And then obviously this isn't a full-time position.
So one of the big things on that is going back to so it's kind of a phased answer, is we talk about the personnel. So guys coming out of the military. So I came from 75th Ranger Regiment, did my entire career there. And if you've ever talked to a special operator, I'm sure you'll have special operations guys. The problem is it's an old adage of you can take the teeth out of the lion, but he's always going to want to hunt. Guys like that, that's all they did. And so it's funny because whenever I was coming out, I just got out in March. So this is near and dear to my heart. One of the biggest issues was I went to my first classes, was getting out. And the first thing they were like, oh, you can be a cop. And I was like, my dad's a veteran of Dallas Police Department. And he was like, do not be a cop. Do not, whatever you do, don't be a cop. So the issue is that these guys are kind of getting thrown out. So whether it is that you're medically discharged or you're coming out of your own volition, the big issue is that they really just toss you out there. Now, some organizations are doing better about it. I'd say the 75th Ranger Regiment, Navy SEALs are really good about it. Green Berets are starting to catch up. And even I have a bunch of friends that are in Delta Force, and they're even having a lot of problems. I just talked to one of them at SHOT Show, and that was one of the first things he said. Is he's like, man, I'm not okay. He's like, I'm not okay getting out. I'm not okay. And you're talking about, these are tier 1 guys. These are guys that are doing all the crazy stuff. One of the biggest issues is we came from 20 years of war. That's what we did. That's what we know. And I was a child when I did it. I was 18, 19 years old. I couldn't have my first beer by the time I was going overseas. So that's all we ever knew. So with this pipeline, what I really like about it and what I tell guys is, hey, I get it. I understand. You don't want to do, like, this isn't your life's dream is to end up doing this. Maybe some of them is, maybe. But when your option is, hey, especially for special operators, is you're going to go be a cop, in today's society right now is rough and you could end up in jail. Or, hey, you're going to go contracting, which is not the thing we wanted to do, because I stopped because I have kids. Like, I need to come home. Like, I need to be home. And so when you're faced with stuff like that, what I like to tell the guys is, like, I understand this isn't the last stop for you. And I tell all these guys that are coming in, not the last stop for you. What this is you come to Texas, we get you a skill, a new rebluing of something that you know very well, so you don't feel like you're relearning something. And then we figure it out there. We get you a good income, a decent income, a schedule that, hey, you call me and tell me that you can't work, I can find somebody else, or I'll go work. It's something we can cover each other. And so they get a good skill, they get a decent income. And then we say, hey, this isn't the last thing. So you now have time to go find out what you really want to do. Get yourself settled, figure out what it is, and then you can move on. And by the end of by the end of that process, when they say, hey, I'm ready to put the gun down on my own terms, I'm done. Like, so a lot of guys come out and they weren't ready to put that gun down. They weren't ready to put that face down, that thing that they did. They weren't ready to put it down. So we're giving them that chance to say, hey, I'm going to give you something worthwhile, something near and dear. Like the most precious, like Matt said, the most precious thing that we have is our children and our churches. That's what we covet. So why don't we take these guys that are very well trained, put them in those places, and then give those guys a chance to readjust on their own terms. In getting into this, I was a project manager for a construction company for I think 3 months. And I can't tell you how much I hated that. Like, I just did not like it. It wasn't me. And I was forcing myself to go and do that. And I was really unhappy doing it. I think this is going to give a lot of these guys a chance to get back out. They're not going to stay security. Maybe some of them do, but most of them will move on to something else and decide that they want to be a teacher, a lawyer, something, anything. But this gives them that chance to do it. So with that pipeline and going out to these veterans organizations and say, bring us your guys that, need something. We're here in Texas, bring us the guys. They bring us the guys. We interview them. We kind of go through it with them. One of the biggest things, as this is kind of my realm, I will go and I'll say, hey, like, do you really want to do this? Is this something you want to do? Because not all of these guys want to do this. Some of them mentally aren't there to do it either. They're not ready. And so we kind of figure that out. But with the foundation, we also don't throw anybody out. We say, hey, maybe this isn't for you, but we're going to go find you some help. We're going to find you an organization that will help you. We've been real good with pairing with, we're getting paired in with 3 Rangers. Gallant Few is another Ranger organization that's really taken on mental health for my tribe. I like to say tribe because every special operations group in the military is a tribe. So my tribe has Gallant Few, and I get free therapy from a guy who's a Ranger who knows exactly what I went through for everything that I'm doing. So they've kind of really taken the brunt of all of that and helped us out tremendously with it. As far as the scheduling concerned, we are growing, and it is a bit of a conundrum sometimes where you'll get guys saying, hey, and really one of the biggest deals, and Matt can attest to this, is we have so many people asking for this that we're trying to grow our security force without, like he said, watering down the guys that we're bringing in and trying to make sure that they are the right fit for it. What I will say, though, is that for veterans, this is perfect because for me, too, and this was when Matt had told me about it, for me, it's taking a guy who had already made the forethought of, I may die in this situation. He's already made that decision. So in Uvalde, and this is kind of a big, no topic sometimes, but in Uvalde, I kind of don't, as a shooter, I don't really fault the police officer that was there when they got put on trial. And the reason why is because he probably didn't realize that was not what he was going to do, or that's not what he wasn't about that life at that door at that time. What I like about this program is that we are taking guys that made that decision almost 2 decades ago and will again. So instead of that hesitation, you have a trained, seasoned guy who's seen a fight, who's been in that combat situation, and goes in immediately, says, hey, I may be going in alone. Somebody can come with me, or I can go in by myself. But having those guys there, I think this is important for both that two-pronged thing is it's helping that vet, it's helping those guys kind of find their purpose. And we're putting guys we're putting dangerous people in the place we want to be protected. And that is our schools and churches.
There's a lot I want to ask about. I just want to throw this out, though, because it's kind of an embarrassing reflection that I had just now. And I'm saying it's embarrassing because I've been working with veterans for so long in so many different aspects, but it never occurred to me, and I've even had formal training on this, transitions, whatnot, but it never occurred to me that somebody could be struggling so much with the occupational aspect, and that's the I'm not okay narrative, right?
Well,
Like, we always think, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I can't structure my finances. I've had everything done for me, all that stuff, right? And then in addition to whatever you're exposed to, especially if you're deployed in combat and all that residue, but it just didn't hit. Maybe it's just hitting me differently now that you can get out and have nothing to do. And it's really the culture that you can't match in regular society that's probably eating at these guys and gals' souls, really. They lost their
100%.
calling.
I think
And I was just gonna say I'm analyzing. It's a terrible analogy, so forgive the crudeness of it, but I'm analogizing it to addiction. When we get somebody, say, into residential treatment, and we take away their favorite coping skill, which was drinking or drugging or whatever, and it's like they don't know what to do because now they're all exposed and vulnerable. It's like you stripped everything away that they knew and was predictable, and they don't know what to do. And I guess I'm just going to float this out there. I wonder what percentage of the pie chart it is that people who come out of service end up becoming either suicidal or end up taking their own lives. That's the struggle as opposed to something else. I wonder how much of it is the identity.
so. My therapist said something that was interesting, and again, him being a special operator, him having gone through it, super interesting thought that he gave is like it's a drug. I was on a drug for 20 years. I looked forward to the deployments. And that's the type of people that you got to think that were in those units is we sought out that. I remember joining and I thought when the wars kicked off and everything, towers came down. I remember joining and people were like, why'd you join? I was like, because there's a fight. Because that's what I'm going to go do. And then it's funny because you get into those tribes and everybody's the same way. And it's the strangest thing in the world to look around and be like, oh, you're all like me. We're all together. So I think it's interesting because when I talk to my friends and I get a call monthly, maybe even a little bit more. A guy's just like, hey man, I'm not okay. I'm having problems. And that's the talk about it is I'm never going to ride on the back of a Chinook and go to Target again. I'm never going to be the apex predator on that continent for however long, because that's what we were doing. You're never going to be involved in those missions. I'm never going to ride on a little bird out to Target and then drop in on somebody with my friends, everybody who I played video games with, eat with. It's like having a bunch of brothers. And then when we get apart, it's when we break apart. It's I don't have that tribe. Once you leave, that tribe is gone. And it's not gone because the guys leave. It's gone because everybody just goes their separate ways, lives their own lives. Like it was funny when I came back home to Dallas, it was like time went on and I had stopped. And then I came back I thought I was back when I was 19 and everybody else was 20 something years later. So it's when guys when you talked about it being a drug, it's 100% a drug. And then it's the tribe. You're missing that group. You're missing that purpose. I'm never going to be that again. So it's not so much the finances and relationships and anything like that. Those are byproducts of you're constantly thinking about that drug. You're constantly thinking about, dude, I tell people all the time, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day and I was like, I still dream in green. I still dream in the nod glows, the night vision goggle glows. I'll dream about talking to guys that passed and that I knew. And so it's kind of funny that I don't think a lot of people understand that. I think they think that a veteran's more upset about the things that he went through. And I think it's less about that. And it's more the things that he's not going to get to do again, the places he won't be ever again, the things he won't ever do. I think it's like taking football players. I heard about a study about this. Football players have the same almost issue because they have the TBIs and stuff like that. But then you take a high level NFL athlete who was at the top of his game for so long and then ends up being injured so bad that he has to leave. And then they have a real bad rate of suicides too, because you got to think like that's not what the money was a byproduct of what he did. Same thing with us. Like, I mean, we didn't get paid a lot, but same thing with us is everything that we did and everything that happens to us afterwards is a byproduct of what we were doing. So like I said, it's like taking a lion and throwing him back into the general population. You know, he still wants to hunt, but he can't. It's not something that's allowed anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's you never know where these conversations end up, and this is why we say it's kind of like shooting the breeze around a beer at a bar. You just don't know where the conversation's going to go. But I appreciate that because there's some serious cultural considerations about the dynamics of military service that most people don't understand. And that was one that I thought I was pretty well attuned, but I don't think I understood the depth of that. Back to your guys' organization, though. Kevin threw some comments in the chat here. And I'm going to frame these properly because in school security, if they even have school security, and a lot of them don't at all, there's definitely a culture shift that I think has to occur within the staff and the students and the parents. The school leader has to be on board. They have to understand what's really going on. And I have to believe that fundamentally shifts how emergencies are handled and evacuation drills and that kind of thing, because different people will be taking the lead, I'm guessing, right? And there was a threat assessment question tacked onto this at the end, but I want to ask this first. So Kevin says, are there any things you guys provide the school besides protection, like leadership talks or other areas of opportunity to be involved with the kids and staff besides just simply preventing the tragedy? Because I'm thinking this like, yeah, it's one thing to stop them in the parking lot, but what else is contributing to this, and how does it shift the culture of the school once you have armed personnel on the grounds?
Yeah, so that's actually the first thing that we do is help instill a security mindset within schools, because that's the best thing that a school can really do from the ground up is training their staff and having an understanding of just keeping doors locked, and that you're not just protecting others and children in doing this, but you're also protecting yourself. We have a video on our YouTube channel that talks about this with Steve with his Secret Service background, and what schools can start implementing to really develop that security mindset. So yeah, we do a lot of training for schools, helping them develop an emergency operations plan or understanding what's in their emergency operations plan. And that's the least likely security related event to the most likely. And a lot of that includes just medical training too, knowing how to treat someone that faints or low blood sugar. If you have an older staff member working at that school, how to operate an AED. All of these things are things that we provide for schools and really want to inspire teachers to understand that safety and security isn't just for the general population. It's also for protecting themselves as well. So yes, that's a fantastic question, and that is something that we are providing. The third aspect is the armed security approach. Really, the core values is, instilling a security mindset, and that is also developing a multidisciplinary threat assessment team. And this is a group of people that the district puts together with help from someone like us, and they have essentially a task force to be able to identify the early warning signs of concerning behavior when we're talking the issue of school shootings and all of that. And taking the Secret Service's model and approach for a threat mitigation investigation, and it's more about derailing that spiral towards violence and those violent tendencies. And it's more about getting the student or the person that you've identified as the issue, whether it's a disgruntled parent or staff member or someone within the local community that's posing a threat, and getting them the help that they need to prevent from having to introduce them to the criminal justice system. So this is a true holistic approach to school safety that really starts with the mindset and training and ends with the physical security aspect. But it's not just the physical security, it's also safety and security measures and access control systems, camera systems, and things like that.
Yeah, I'm curious. David Kirk, who's been on again, off again, we talk to him from time to time. He's down in Tallahassee. He's a psychologist who's a big proponent of the Secret Service data collection and model that they put out. He's like, it's frustrating because this has been out for years and nobody uses it. I'm glad to hear you guys are using it. Mm. I tend to be Johnny Raincloud in a lot of these where somebody has a good idea and I start pointing out all the pitfalls, not just because I'm a jerk, but because I want people to solve the problems. My experience, and I think this probably may not apply to Texas specifically because Texas is sort of its own thing sometimes with regard to a lot of the laws and regulatory codes that you all have, being a Republican and all. But in many school districts, we have restorative justice policies, and they look very different. But what it essentially does is it says, you're not allowed to kick kids out of school for any reason except like the most extreme ones, because something, don't deprive them of their education. Meanwhile, the knucklehead in the school who should be removed from class is disrupting 29 other kids' ability to learn. And so there's this soft coddling approach of, under the banner of restorative justice, and we don't want to remove anybody or embarrass them or whatever. And it flies in the face of the Secret Service's ability to identify some of these very clear warning signs. Another gal named Tannehill Glenn came up with a similar set of criteria to identify, based on some matrices that she created through research across all the school shootings in history up to like 2017. You can clearly identify kids who are at risk. And I'm talking threats within the school now, right? Not the external ones. So my Johnny Raincloud here says, yeah, that's nice and all, but where is the spine within the administration, the school leader, principal, the community, the juvenile justice system, the social services workers, whoever is able to come to the table and actually execute this upon the child and get them removed, get them help, plug in with the parents? Because usually the parents are the ones that throw the wrench in and go, you don't get to terrorize my kid by saying that he's a bad person or whatever based on a social media post. How has your guys' experience been? This weaves into Kevin's next question, is how do you coordinate with first responders in each area, about one of your staff members responding? Because I have questions about other armed staff on campus and whether concealed carry is allowed in these schools too. But how does this all come together so you could put in a stop with a known identified high likely threat within the school and get everybody's buy-in so that there's no knee buckling along the way based on vibes and feels or threats of litigation?
Yeah, all that starts with a relationship with the administrators. In Texas, the superintendents are the gatekeepers to everything. When it comes to policies for their schools, they kind of operate like their own little cities, so that they're essentially the mayor of their own city. With that, it's providing a service that schools need, helping them solve issues and meet that compliance, and really building that relationship through helping and providing our service to them. And with that, over time, you start to build down those walls if there are any. Obviously, the schools that we're in, we don't have those issues. And the schools that we're going to be growing into this year, with administrators, especially in certain areas that take a different approach to safety, or might be more of a anti-gun area or anything like that, it's going to be a lot harder. But what I can say is a lot of those school districts are typically opting to have law enforcement there. So they're able to have a response system and law enforcement there, which I think is fantastic because they have resources that no one else does. And they're able to fill in those gaps and meet those needs. So to answer your question, in the state of Texas specifically, a lot of those school districts will have their own ISD police departments, or they will have law enforcement there on site. What we're really targeting are the school districts that can't find the law enforcement, or they have one or two officers checking in on a couple of different schools because they can't meet the staffing needs, and especially with the funding, because that funding has to come from somewhere. And we don't want schools having to take from their operational budgets to be able to meet this state mandate, but we want to be able to help them and have that grant writing capability and be an external funding source for being able to support that district. And that speaks volumes to a lot of the school administrators. So it's it becomes much easier to be able to come in and provide that training and meet those needs and kind of break down some of those barriers, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Mike?
Yeah. So we've had one mass shooter on our show. His name was John Romano. Did 17 years in prison. We had another, he does TED Talks, high profile speaker named Aaron Stark, who almost became a mass shooter, but he goes around the country talking about the thought process. Both of them said they had a grievance with the school. And when I asked both of them, would it have mattered if there was an armed guard at the school? Both of them said it wouldn't have, because I was going there to die. Right. I can't think of anything better than veterans to be there waiting for these people to show up. But because I think a lot of people think incompetent police, or police that may not have training, or people that, but I guess my question to you is, have you gotten some sort of pushback from where you've been successful? I'm sure not every parent is pleased with this, or has it been the opposite, right? Has it been like my situation where like I had one daughter go to private school her whole life, and then I had the other one who just wanted to get D's and F's. And I was like, you could do that in public school. And it was two different school, pay a lot of money for that. But it was two different paths, but you saw like the public school was it was horrible. And then the private school, it was like you couldn't even, you looked the wrong way in that school and they were on your ass. You know what I mean? The guards or, you know, and I was comfortable with that. I like showing up to schools where I feel like it's a fortress and my kids are protected because my kids are the most important thing in my life. But have you found pushback from anybody who said, I can't believe you're hiring, say it's vets who are coming back and transitioning that might not be mentally well and they have guns and you know what I mean? Have you seen any pushback or has it been pretty good?
You know, oddly enough, when I talk to friends about this, guys that I know, they're like, should some of us be there? And always the answer is like, not all of us should be there. And everybody kind of knows that that's a shtick. What's funny, I think, about the schools is that in the schools and the churches is that anybody who's seeking our services have actually just been very excited about the whole thing. And I think here in Texas, if they don't seek our services, we don't really know why. Some of them have probably said that, but I don't think anybody said it like openly. What I will say about it is the PTAs are probably our way in. We have an interesting in on that is, so I have 7 kids and my wife's a federal agent. And so she's, you know, Matt and Yehuda know her really well. She's one of the more competent people I've ever met in my life, more than me.
That's an understatement, sir. 7 children and she's an agent. Go ahead. Continue.
She's so she's almost super. She's a Girl Scout mom. She runs a Girl Scout troop. Like with the fist of
your own home, as it turns out.
Yeah, well, yeah, we run basketball teams in our own homes.
That was a basketball team. Yeah, that's what I was to say.
With a
yeah. It's funny. It's because we have a lot of guns, and it's like, well, you know, go get this, and you go get this, and if an intruder comes in, we'll just stack up on this door. She'll take the first team, I'll take the second team. But I can't sing her praises more just because of the fact that when we talk about how do you get into schools and how do you get the administration to listen, it's the PTA. And who runs the PTA? Moms.
Right?
Moms run the PTA. So when they see, I call her an Amazon because she's a bit taller than I am. So like when they see this Amazon come in and she's wearing her gun, her badge, and she's like, I teach your girls at Girl Scouts. Like I come and I volunteer. She does the parent, what's it called, where they come in and they talk about what they did for a living. I never got asked because I was never there.
Career day.
Yeah, career day. So she's all dressed up. She's got her badge on. So when we talk about going to these schools, it's the moms that we're going to go to. It's not when we start getting spread out. And it's probably going to be my wife who goes to the PTA and be like, what's the problem? Why don't you want your kids to be protected? It's funny because in her Girl Scout troop, there's 2 schools that have moms that work in the schools, in the offices. And they both come up to her and be like, can you come and talk to our school? Like, can you bring your people and come and talk to our school? Because again, these are my children, and this guard who looks like he's being paid $10 an hour and he's been on his phone out of the 8 hours he's been there, he's been on his phone 7.5. And the one time he did, he went out for the longest smoke break on the planet. Not saying that's ever happened, but that could be a thing. But when we talk about getting into these schools and getting that pushback, it's going to be the moms that we go to. It's going to be like, hey, like, you guys are pretty much running this. Like, this is what we offer. Here's how we mitigate your questions. And I think that's one of the biggest things is very open about, hey, yeah, like veterans do have their issues. We will 100%, we will talk about that. We also have the answer for is that we say not all of them are doing this. There's a selection process to get into this. There's a qualification that they have to meet. And then we also work to get them help when they do need help. We've had instances where we've had to say, hey man, I think you need to take a step back. And we get them out to that help. So I think that's one of the biggest things when we answer that question.
Well, it's like compared to what? Like, do you know what you're getting from the local Securitas group?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, by the way, is anybody else sad that snipers aren't invited to career day? I'm sad.
I did it once. and it didn't go well.
I so
All the
want to
boys
do
though
that.
all the boys wanted to be me. They were like drawing on their arm because a bunch of tattoos. They were all like drawing on their arms and stuff, and was like and yelling at people, and their mom, like parents were coming back being like, I don't know if your dad should come back and say anything to our kids anymore.
That's amazing. Before we started, Yehuda said, I want to make it all about them and the organization, not me, because I've been on the show. He's very polite that way and very humble. But I do want to ask you about your work and how you got involved and how you guys met and what your role is now. But really, precisely, like, I know you. I want you to tell the story, but why is this important to you? Like, why you? Why them? Why now? How'd you guys meet? And what's the connection?
So it's interesting. The connection is one of our board members, I met at an event here in Texas, hit it off with him. He thought I would be a good fit to meet with Matt, and Matt and I met, God, was it like 2 years ago? Allegiance Project must have just started. So there was no real work to be done with them yet, but I was happy to obviously help push veterans in schools. Like I said earlier, to me, it's not just about helping transitioning veterans and getting them a job, something to do, something to hold on to help them with that transition. But it's also about the children. And as a Second Amendment advocate, this is, like I said, it's a real solution. It's something that's a viable solution to help protect children. And as Allegiance Project was, growing, Matt and I kind of kept in touch. Not a lot, but we kept in touch. And finally, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, listen, I love what you're doing. Give me a job. I want to be your director of outreach. I've built a massive network over the last 9 years. I'm incredibly well connected in the firearms world, and I want to introduce you guys to everybody to help the organization. So he's like, done. And it was really that simple. And now I've been with them for about 4 months, and it's been, it's really a dream job. Because it's funny, at SHOT Show, we bumped into Mike just randomly in the walkway, and I'm like, Mike, this is Matt, this is Mike, and then I just walked away, right? Like, that's literally that's literally what my job is. Make that introduction, and then kind of let Matt do his whole spiel and selling points and stuff like that. And I'm okay with that. I've been in the limelight for long enough that I'm okay taking, a backseat to this. And because, again, it's not about me. It's about protecting children, protecting the Second Amendment, and protecting veterans. And it's not about me. So I'm great where I am, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
I will say he has such a heart for protecting children, and with his background of being an author and getting started with writing children's books on gun safety, there's just so much that meshes with all of our heartbeats. And having the first organization of its kind being a true Second Amendment supporting approach to school safety, it just made sense. And he does a little bit more than just introducing us to people. He's being a little too humble. He always is. But he's been such a fantastic resource. And he's, the whole reason why we had the idea to go to SHOT Show. And I've been lined up on, all of us lined up on podcast meetings, and it's been, it's been a huge blessing.
Yeah, Yehuda,
awesome.
That was the first time I met you, actually. It was when I had a booth for my gun company at one of the NRAs. I think it was like 16, maybe 17. 2017.
Had to be 17 because my first book came out in. Yeah, my first book came out in. Yeah, 17.
Yeah, because I remember I was co-hosting Marty Talking Lead, and you were sitting on the side, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" And he was pointing at his children's book, like, "Hey, can I get on there to talk about it?"
I hustled like crazy back then. Now I go to SHOT Show, and it's still a hustle, but I'm not doing what I used to be. I don't have to hustle as hard because I already put in that work. The only time I hustled really hard this past SHOT Show was when I saw Ted Nugent walk into the Gun Owners of America booth, and I was like, I need to get a picture with him, because I literally turned. Did I turn to you, Louis, or did I turn to Rachel? I think it was Rachel.
I turned Rachel because he had a 20-minute conversation with her. My wife had done a raid with him like 15 years ago, and he remembered her, and they had this like off the cup 20-minute conversation about the whole thing. They get pictures, and my wife's like, yeah, yo, I know him. And it's like, you know Ted Nugent?
And I literally, he walked into the GOA booth, and there was like a group of people starting to crowd around, but no one, I don't know if no one had the guts, or I don't know what it was, but no one was walking up to him. So I just took my phone, flipped open the camera, turned to Rachel. I said, get a picture now. And I just walked right up to Ted Nugent. I did my whole hustling thing. And Ted Nugent saw my bagel holster and said how much he loves it. So I'm going to have to get him a bagel holster for next year. And yes, but yeah, that's how we met, right, Mike? I mean, just through the whole grind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Matt, I got another question for you about how would you, if you haven't been approached, how would you talk to somebody that actually said directly to you, I don't like this idea. I don't want to turn our schools into a fortress. We shouldn't have to do that. I want to live in my cartoon world where I don't have to worry about that thing. Like, how would you handle that kind of comment?
First off, I'd obviously reaffirm their concerns. As stupid as I think it is, I would definitely try to meet them where they're at and remind them that when there is an event at a school, or if an event happens at their school, how do they want their school to be remembered by responding to this event? Do you want to be remembered as the school that dropped the ball? And when you're in the news, do you want to be the people that shoulda, woulda, coulda and didn't? Or do you want to be the school that was proactive and took action and actually saved lives and protected children? And because your staff had this medical training, this student didn't choke, and really just get down to the nitty gritty. And a lot of it's, people just don't like the idea of guns. But fortunately, in the state of Texas, I wouldn't need to make it about politics or policy or anything like that. We're supporting schools to be compliant with state law. That's it. And we just want the best possible solution with supporting those schools, and do it without taking from your school's operational budget, so your kids have these resources to be in all of these extra activities, band, art, all of those things. So that way your school isn't necessarily robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I just remind them of the things that their school can continue to do for their children, because we're that solution to fill that gap in funding.
So that makes sense. I was at a banquet one time, and some guy wanted to talk to me about the Second Amendment and how it should be interpreted and how I interpret it. And I told the guy, I didn't come to this banquet to talk about this. Like, it was pointless. I could already tell the guy hated guns. So I was just, we were arguing over what a militia was. But it was really funny. Yehuda, you'll appreciate this. There was a lady sitting across that was kind of listening to our dumb shit. And basically she's like, my kids go to, I think it was like the Zucker Jewish Academy. It's in Summerlin.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. And she's like, I'm not a gun person, but she's like, when I dropped my kids off and I could see the guards with, and she said like machine guns, but there were probably ARs, right? Like,
right.
But I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to, it's not the time or place. She was trying to defend me. She was like, actually really, she was like, I'm really, really comfortable that my kids are being protected by people with those type of guns, knowing that they're trained and whatever. But what does that look like for this team? Like, what do they carry? How do they carry themselves? How are they dressed? I mean, obviously you have to have conversations with your guys, right? And they have to fit into the school a certain way. What are those type of things like?
So, with our approach to safety, we're all about standards. And Luis can talk about a lot of these standards. And taking guys from the military, you don't really have to worry about them carrying themselves a certain way or having the training and being able to meet a lot of those standards, especially when it comes to uniform and dress. But all of our officers have an outward plate carrier. They carry, most of them, it's going to be a Glock 19 or a Glock 17. We had one guy apply to work for us that I think he had a Glock. It was chambered in 10.
Lewis looks at it, rolls up.
Yeah,
are you hunting bears?
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you shooting with that?
Yeah,
I was like, do you hate money? And you like that's one of those rounds where like you got to really think, you got to really think about whether or not you want to shoot him or not, because you're like, man, I was like like 3 of these rounds is like dinner.
Right.
So
right.
if I do anything, like maybe I should just go get the 22.
Yeah.
But like Matt said, it's also too, what I like to say is that we don't have this problem here in Texas. And if we ever go outside of Texas, maybe we might have this issue. But these guys are dressed like warriors. They're dressed like soldiers. Why? Because some people will be like, oh, well, I don't want that. It was like, that's what I like she said, it makes them feel better when they see somebody who's in shape, looks the part, and has his kit set up the way a gunfighter, like somebody who's done that work would. And things aren't just falling off of him. Things aren't, he doesn't look messy. Also on that too, is that's a deterrent for anybody attacking the school. If they're going to attack the school, they're going to see him and be like, am I better than him? Like, will I beat him? And maybe he's that person who's like, oh, I've come here to fight somebody to die. Then that's the guy you're going to. Also, with that being said, as a deterrent, he's the magnet. And we tell these guys that all the time. I need people to come and fight you first. I don't need them to go fight those kids. I need them to think that they're going to need to take you out before they get anywhere else, because in that situation, that is buying 10, 15, 20 seconds of time for police to actually get there and respond. So if him and our guy are soaking in a fight and they're soaking rounds up together, then that's getting the police there. And that's what I like about the veteran thing is these guys know that this is what these guys do. They were soldiers before, they're soldiers now. When that situation happens, they understand that, hey, like, I need him to come fight me. I'm not running. I'm not going to stand outside of the door. I'm not going to not go into this hallway. I need this person to come fight me. And
how much input do they have on the perimeter? Sorry to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
Because everybody I know has a military mind, always sees weaknesses in the way things are set up, or like, oh, that door, you know what I mean? Like, how much input do they have to get the school to actually change something that could be a major hole or flaw in the way that the school's protected?
So that's part of our assessment. When we go in, we go around and we do a security assessment on whatever facility that we're looking at, and we'll say, hey, these are your weak points. This is what I would do. We did a church not too long ago. The whole thing was made of glass, the entire thing. It was I was like, somebody could just go across the street and probably have a good chance of doing damage here. And we tell them that we're like, hey, like, this is specifically a hard thing to secure because of this situation. And we do our best to kind of go through that with them, be like, well, all we're doing at that point is mitigating. So the same with schools. We say, hey, all these access points needs to close. This needs to do this. And I think I can't remember what school it was, but there was a school where the teachers would go out for like smoke breaks onto the back, and they would leave that door open, and that's how somebody got in. And that's one of the things that our officer would have the ability to do, is go and say, hey, you got to close this. Like, I can't be going around here and doing this the entire time. The other thing that we're bringing in rather soon is the ability to use drones over the schools. And so instead of one officer having to deal with multiple entry points, somebody's going to have a drone up, and during access times, flying it around, making sure that these things aren't actually open. Some of the technology that we plan on bringing in is really going to be a force multiplier for the officers that are on, being able to catch some of that stuff.
Oh, geez, I had something and I lost it.
Well, I got something.
Sorry.
How are kids going to cut school if there's drones flying around? I mean, this is a whole new level of...
I think it's really important when we talk about school safety and when we talk providing an armed response for schools, we make it clear that we're not there as a disciplinary source. We're not there to police the children. That's why you employ your staff. That's why you have trained staff to be able to implement those tactics and strategies with, preventing kids from getting into fights and all this, or arguments, is trying to cut school. That's still the school's responsibility. We're there for an active threat. That's our purpose, for serving these schools. So, making that clear to school administrators that we're not going to be someone that you're going to come in and say, hey, Johnny here's causing a stir in class. We need you to pull him out and have a conversation with him. That's not what we do.
That's why I tell Johnny that he's like, this is a sidebar. That's why I tell Johnny, he's like, I made bad grades and I went to war for 20 years. Is this
Yeah.
what you want to do? If he says yes, I'll be like, we got a job for you, man. Do I
I
have
mean,
a career?
naturally, your guys are going to become leaders in that school. It's just going to happen, right? I mean,
And I think that's going to
mean,
be on each guy to, and that's on, I think that's going to be on each of the officers. If like, you're not going to sit there and, you know, tell kids to go away. Like maybe some of it, maybe you just don't talk to them. Maybe you just kind of, you walk around and do it. I imagine that there will be some, and I think that's fine to be somebody, a kid needs mentorship and he like sits there and he comes to the security officer and he talks to him a little bit. I think that's going to be what happens. That's going to be naturally. I think a lot of boys will go to that. It's like Matt said, it's the teacher saying, I need you to go outside and, you know, or there's a fist fight inside and I need you to go break up those kids and take them to detention or take them to wherever they're going. It's like, well, like, are we throwing them out? Like, what are we doing?
yeah.
And that's one of the
That's
things.
a thing,
like,
though.
What's that?
That's a thing, though. Like my daughter that went to the public school down here, she said that when a fight would break out, she was like, it was like a hockey game. She's like, the teachers would just stand there and the kids would beat the shit out of each other.
Not
You know what I
allowed to
mean?
intervene.
And
You're not allowed to intervene because you could either be perceived as escalating, or you could get caught in the crossfire, or you could inadvertently injure a child and then put yourself in litigation's way. It's like they're instructed to stand down. There's no like, you know, PE teacher grabs the one kid and, you know, history teacher grabs the other kid and they haul them away. It's like, no, you don't put hands on kids ever anymore.
So I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
wrong.
It's
Like
crazy. It's
that
crazy.
should be, because back in my day, I remember like, because I fought a lot. And when I got into a fight, I also got like haymakered by our wrestling coach, who I was a wrestler too. And like, he was just grabbing people up, you know, knocking them down, dragging them out. And that was, you know, I came home with a shiner. My dad's like, what happened? It was like, I got into a fist fight and the teacher punched me. And he was just like, yeah, I bet you won't do that again.
yeah,
Yeah.
things have
But
changed.
these days with the cameras and the parents who are just trigger happy on the attorneys, it's nobody wants to get in that situation where they're named as a defendant because they dared to intercede in the fight. On the flip side of the coin is like, well, you didn't intercede in the fight. My kid's injured now. Who's to blame, right? So it's just a stupid, you know.
The catch 22.
We live in litigation nation. That's what I call it.
Yeah, we do.
Well, speaking of litigation, though, like, what's the insurance like on something like this? Or does it fall under the school insurance?
No. I mean, every security company has to have X amount of dollars of insurance to be able to operate in the state of Texas. We go a little above and beyond with ours. We even have a $4 million terrorism aggregate attached to our insurance, and just making sure that we're providing above and beyond the coverage needed. You just have to do that nowadays. Insurance is expensive. That's just the way it is. So
How big is the organization in total? How many people right now, including, you know, obviously there's 3 on the call, but like, how big are you guys?
So with the organization, the nonprofit, we have our board members. We just brought on a fourth. He's a finance guy that got connected through my vice president. So we have my VP, Nathan, who connected me with Yehuda. Lewis's wife is on our board of directors. So she's the fierce mama bear that can go in and talk to schools. And she's a little less threatening when you're approaching school administrators with talking about your school needs this. They're going to listen to her more than they are someone like me or Luis or you know, Secret Service guy, Steve Burris. So he's also on our board as well. Andy, we just added to the board of directors. And then with the security company, Lewis is our director of operations. We have Steve also serves as our our director of licensing and compliance. And then we have our supervising officers that oversee every location and essentially every contract. And sometimes it's multiple contracts, but the big thing is we wanted to create opportunities for growth. So as an officer shows leadership and skills and, you know, is just getting excellent reviews, we can move him up to a leadership position where he oversees other officers. And then he handles the scheduling for those sites. And if that schedule can't get filled, then he's the first guy to make sure that we have 100% coverage at any location. So we have systems built in. So to go back and answer your scheduling question, Jake, Our supervising officers are essentially the face of our security company. We want them to be the liaison between our clients and our security company. They're also the ones communicating with local law enforcement and EMS, knowing where the nearest medical center or facility is, the nearest police station, having those relationships in the community and everything like that. So that's essentially how we structure everything. On the security side, we have about 30 contractors working for us right now. And with this new jump in schools, we're going to be able to take kind of our rock star contractors, put them into those positions at schools, and then we'll start the hiring process over where we have a lot of part-time positions. We can move new contractors into those places and kind of develop and grow them.
Do you have any females working as officers?
Right now, we don't.
Do you have any applicants? Do they ever express any interest?
Yeah, we've had several females apply. The issue that we found is they were applying from really far away. And it's just, when we do get applicants, it really depends on if we're hiring at the time. But what we're really trying to do is just have a pipeline of people that we can hire directly.
Yeah. I remember my question. So as far as the partnerships and the funding, you got some funding coming in from some either donations or grants or what have you, and then you got the schools or the churches. How do you figure out the mix of the balance of payment?
So with our nonprofit, we only support schools. So if that church has a private school attached to it, that's how we can channel that funding. Our security company serves churches, and we have new programs for churches in the area that we've launched, but that funding is only allocated for schools.
Gotcha.
Now,
Okay.
we have a unique approach to church security through our security company, though. We're all about being the first to do things in our organization. It's not because we're egotistical. It's just because we all share the same mindset of how can we solve tomorrow's problems today? And we had a lot of churches reaching out to us for security on Sundays. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, you and every other church wants 4 or 5 guys to work 4 hours on a Sunday morning, and no one has the bandwidth to be able to do that. So we have a new program that we've launched, which is going into a church and training and developing their own safety team. So helping them develop all the programs. We provide the operational oversight. We'll do a threat and vulnerability assessment, and we'll get them set up for success and make sure that they're meeting all the standards that they need to in the state of Texas, so they don't have to become a security company. But we also do firearms training with those teams, medical training, and then de-escalation and threat mitigation training as well. So those are really important factors. And then just leaning into those church bodies and how can you not only identify the potential threats, but then this turns into, well, here's an opportunity for some kind of ministry intervention with this person. And that's what churches are obviously great at. So with that, we have the ability to make this affordable for churches. We partner with an organization called Faith Forged here in the state of Texas, and they actually do the grant writing for churches and get the money out of the big, beautiful bill. And they can find that funding and allocate that towards security systems, access control systems, and any training or any security related training for churches as well.
I'm very optimistic about that. I'm excited to hear it because not only do I have 2 friends who are therapists in Texas, one's in Austin, the other's in Abilene. They also serve in their churches. One is the lead of his church's security team. I just took over the lead of my church's called, it's the usher team, but it's security for the most part. I have a background in security, so it's a nice fit. But I'm trying to figure out how to get that out more. But knowing that you guys have already invented the wheel, that means that we won't have to reinvent it. So we may be in touch a little later on to see how we can replicate things elsewhere, like say Northern Nevada. So
Yeah,
appreciate that. That's good.
absolutely. Yeah. And fortunately with this is Faith Forged wants to take this to a national level. And then we're also creating another entity that's going to focus on training. So same branding, similar name, but it's going to focus just on training for law enforcement, military, and then other security and safety teams. So that way we can branch out and make this more of a national approach to training safety teams and just getting churches prepared, and more importantly, empowering church bodies to be able to protect themselves.
Yeah. Excellent.
Which is funny because at SHOT Show, that was the number one question. Was when we would get around, we would talk to everybody, and one of the first things they would ever ask is, when are you doing this in my state? How can like we get this into my state? And that's funny because we're sitting there being like, we gotta figure out things for Texas first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sound familiar,
We have
Mike?
to fill the need here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The expectation level of Jake and I talk about it all the time with Kevin. It's just like every year someone's like, what's new? What are you guys doing new? And we're like, we're not supposed to have something new every year. We're trying to focus on what we already have and expand that. You know what I mean? Like it's tough. I feel
I
your
think that,
pain about
but I
raising
think
money.
that just
It's
speaks
crazy.
for that this is wildly needed. That this is something that some solution was needed for all of this happening. I mean, like I keep going back to Uvalde. Uvalde happened in Texas, supposedly a 2A friendly state, but one of the worst incidences that could have possibly happened. And like I said, I think everybody wants a solution, but they want the solution to be happy and like happy and a fairy tale. Oh, everybody just got along and this just never happened. This will never happen again because we legislated something into it, or we said, hey, these schools are gun-free zones. I think when everybody says that, they don't understand it. That is a dirty business, and this is a dirty topic. It's something that it's only going to be won over by, and it's sad to say that we're in this situation, but now that we're in this situation, it's only going to be won over by people who need and want to respond to this.
Yeah.
So
It's tough. The instant gratification mentality and entitlement has rippled so deeply across culture that people are just allergic to hard work and hard conversations, I think. And, wanting to legislate your way out of it just passes the buck to them, or it's like they will solve it. Someone needs to do something. And then, Mike's favorite phrase, like, we are the something that we're doing here with the guns and mental health thing. You guys are the something that someone is doing. I make no apologies for people, or to people, I should say, man, I need to have lunch or something. I make no apologies to people who are offended or have their sensibilities ruffled or otherwise perturbed by the fact that we're willing to do the work that nobody else apparently wants to. So it puts us in a unique position to say, well, we're doing it. How do you want to help? Open your wallet.
yeah. And again, I think that's one of those things where it's like, if you have a better solution, we're all
Yeah, we're
ears.
not attached to it.
Yeah. Right now, this is what we see as the best solution. I always tell the guys that when we talk about this subject and at SHOT Show, ran into a lot of friends that were there, and they were just like, oh, like, well, how did you get into this? And I was like, it's weird. I stumbled my way into this, A, and then B, it's literally, Matt is a person who did everything that we had ever said that we were going to do. Every special operations veteran, I think almost every soldier that was out there who was a father, who has kids, has a family, had said, if you would have stuck me there, I would have fought that guy. I would have fought him to the death. I would have gone into that room. I probably would have died, but that's fine. Every single guy. We're now at Matt is simply the guy who put his money where his mouth was. Everybody said it. He's the one who created a company that did it. And so it's like, I can't do it. I don't have the know-how, but I have the skills to teach, to push down to the guys that are going to be there, and I know the guys that want to be there. And I think that was the equation. Is I think everybody was just wondering who was going to do this. And everybody's doing the Spider-Man meme, looking at each other and pointing. Yeah. Everybody's just like, you, Matt, simply the guy who said, it'll be me. I'll do it.
It takes a lot to do. And it's kind of funny because the other day, my wife and I were watching TV and we were watching something about, they were talking about being able to vote without an ID. My wife, she's from Slovakia, right? So she's like, are there that many people that don't have an ID? Because like all of our friends have ID. Like everybody has an ID. And it's kind of funny. I was like, yeah, you'd think, she said it. She's like, why doesn't somebody start a nonprofit that just gets these people IDs the proper way and pays for it if it's that expensive? And I was like, because people like to just bitch about things. They don't really want to change the system. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like when you actually do it and put it in motion and execute on it, then it's like something can get done. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that they would never want the kids to be protected because they love this fight. They let it get political. They let it get in the way of their common sense thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that until it happens at their school to their kids.
Well, I was
I
thinking
almost
about that. That would
guarantee
be
you.
so. We work with a lot of researchers now, and that's one of the things. I know Kevin's in the producer role today, but I would love to ask some of the people that we work with in research. Have you ever, we get a lot of these anti-gun groups that latch on to the victims' families, right? The children's families, and get them to join their cause to say, like, if all these guns went away. I wonder how much, if we did a study on all the shootings that there have been where unfortunately it's been tragic, we've lost children. How many parents would have said, I would have loved to have a program like this. I would have had it,
And I think
we
like
just,
one of the biggest things too is that like it's not just gun. This isn't just a gun problem.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to kill someone, if they want to kill, especially kids, because that's for a grown man or grown woman, it's not hard. It's not just a gun problem. If somebody made it in there with a knife and no one had a gun, but no one was going to stop them, it's already happened in Europe. Like, person runs through 20 people, killing them with machetes, knives, it could be a fork. They would probably still stand a good chance of hurting a lot of people. So this isn't really a gun problem. This is we have to find the people who are going to stand up and defend the children. And that's what I would ask these groups. It's like, okay, let's take guns out of it. Somebody comes in with a machete. What do you do?
Yeah.
Who's going to do it? Are we anti-machete now?
Yeah.
right.
I like to remind those people that only 60% of school attacks are done with a firearm. So it's just the firearms are always publicized, and it's always put in the news as a hot button, because the issue isn't about gun violence. It's just about violence and mental health at its core.
People violence.
Yeah. If we got rid of guns, we'd be like England, and we'd be marching to ban knives just like they are. It wouldn't change, it wouldn't change anything.
While banning.
Yeah.
What are the other 40%?
We
I'm
always
curious,
ask,
'cause
what's
I
your
don't-
threshold for death, right? Like, what's your threshold for death? How many?
Yeah.
It's so funny because, when people have like a cause that they're against, like one is too many, and then they throw that stuff out, when it doesn't fit the narrative. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And some of the bigger death tolls have been in Europe, and it's been a guy driving a truck, through a crowd of people. And it's like, okay, so are we getting rid of all the trucks now? Like, where do you stand on just, like you said, human violence? We didn't have, in the Middle Ages, we didn't have guns. Like, the societies didn't have guns.
We didn't
They
have
had
any problems either. That's what my history
We
books
had
tell me.
massacre problems.
Yeah. Peaceful transitions of power and all sorts of stuff. No, Matt, though, you mentioned that statistic. First of all, I'm curious where that came from, but also what are the other 40%? Because I don't hear about them. And I'm sure there's a reason for that.
So
but
a
what
lot
is
of the statistics and research that we pull from are actually from the studies done from the Secret Service. They've been studying this and really diving into this and putting out reports for the last 20 years. So, and all this information is available for people, including resources to help schools mitigate violence in schools and implement a multidisciplinary threat assessment team. All these resources can be pulled from the Secret Service website.
So off the top of your head, do you know what the other attacks are?
No, not off the top.
Bombs or
no.
Okay.
A lot of it's knives. But then we don't think about, like improvised explosives. Those have been
IEDs.
caught in schools. There was a guy, I want to say about 4 years ago, he was stopped outside of an elementary school, and he had a knife and then an improvised explosive device in the trunk of his car. And he was apprehended by police, but we don't ever talk about those issues or really hear about situations like that.
Well, it's just like defensive gun use. I mean, that doesn't get publicized because it's counter to the narrative that people want to disarm populace.
No, and diving into how many shooters have been stopped or mass killings have been stopped because you had someone with the ability to protect themselves and protect others.
I think for the churches, one of the biggest ones that happened was that I don't laugh at the situation, but I laugh at the optics of it. Is there's some old 50-year-old man that was part of the security team. Guy comes in with a gun trying to kill the pastor, and he hits him from something like 35 yards moving, like in traffic, and puts him down one round. And the guy's using the biggest revolver I've ever seen. But that essentially stopped, because once he finds his target, what do you think he's going to do next? He's already gone that far.
Mhm.
Do you think he's not going to stop now?
Mhm.
And so that's, I think, too, one of the things that with the defensive is like my wife's real big on that, where she's a woman and she's like, yeah, I could, like, I have a gun for a reason, like, because I have to protect, like, if somebody comes in and they have a gun, I have to stop them. And the only way I'm going to stop them is a gun. Like, so, and she's real big into that. My dogs are going nuts.
I can't hear him. I can't hear him. Well, that's probably a good place to stop, is that signs don't work, is what I heard Lewis say. So Mike always concludes by asking his trademarked, is a trademarked question or just
Yeah, we'll just call it that. We'll go with
branded? Okay.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on the show. It's awesome work that you do. I love it. I think it's right in our ethos of like you said, it's mental health, it's protection, it's making sure everybody's good. And I love that. Having said that, how do you guys work on your mental health?
Man, having a brotherhood of guys around you that think the same way, and knowing that you can reach out to them and talk to them about anything. You know, we talk a lot about, we're all friends, and I always joke that I really started this organization so I'd have a group of guys to hang out with and have friends. But that's, you know, and Lewis and I were talking about this today. That's my recharge, reaching out to the men in my life that I know I can depend on and rely on, and, you know, share issues with and find support with. That's been a big help for me.
I like to browbeat Yehuda over text message for mental health.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Louise and I, our text messages are so dark and mentally unstable, but it stabilizes us at the same time.
Nobody better leak the signal chat.
Yeah, right.
No,
Right?
seriously not.
It's a bad neighborhood in there.
I think we would both be taken out. I use ChatGPT to create these action movie posters of me and Yehuda when I'm
Nice.
bored.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Nice.
where Rabbi Rage and El Matador, it's great. It looks fantastic.
Well,
I need to see this.
Jake,
Right?
I'll text you. I'll text you right now, Jake.
But
You better.
as far as for mental health, especially just coming out, I'm not afraid to say that the first 4 or 5 months were super rough for me. Guys always ask me, they're like, hey, how was transition? I was like, it was the hardest thing I ever did. I was like, I would go back to Ranger School for an indefinite amount of time if they told me that I didn't have to do that again.
Were you suicidal?
Yes, there was a point where I was. There was a point where, and it's like you said, it wasn't the loss of, it wasn't that my finances were bad or that things were going. I was like, I don't know what to do with myself anymore. There's this void of purpose that I had where I was like, what do I do and where do I go? Like, who is me now that I don't have this?
And that's crazy because you had a family. I'm sorry to keep interrupting. This is just so impactful to me. Like, you got a wife and 7 kids and you had that experience. You know what I mean? Like, wow,
So-
man.
You want to hear something crazy? And this guy, so there was a guy named his name's Cap. Everybody called him Cap. His name's Kapacheski, or his name was Kapacheski. Kapacheski was the first special operations guy to lose a leg in combat and then fight his way back to being put with a prosthetic, being put on, made a book about mental resiliency, lost his leg, fought back, got back on the teams, was going on to operations with a prosthetic. We got a call, this is about a year and a half ago. We have, because all special operations groups, everybody who's in them has like a chat that everybody's a part of. And in the chat, they're like, hey, Cap's gone. What happened? Killed himself. We're like, so this guy who made a book about mental resiliency got out and then ended up taking his own life. I assume because of that, because of what I described. So it's funny because when I think about it, it's like, what chance do I have? That guy went through hell and then fought his way back and then ended up doing that. So, you know, when you say, I have 7 kids, and that's sad, but that's not the thing we're thinking about. And it's even to the point where it's like, well, I'm useless. I think when I used to talk about it, I was like, I'm a hammer that has nothing to hammer anymore. I'm a tool that no longer has a purpose. And for us, that's all we never knew anything more than that's all we wanted, is to be purpose, like have a purpose and do the job. When you take that from those guys, it's rough. So that's what I say. It's like transition was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Still is. It's still one of the hardest things. I still deal with it. I still have my moments. But what I find has helped is finding a therapist who was a ranger as well, went through the same things I went through, because the VA kept giving me somebody and he wanted to talk about my inner child. And I kept looking and be like, I didn't have problems. I was like, I had a fantastic upbringing. I was like, me and my brother, my parents are still together. Like, my dad loved me. My mom loved me. We did the normal everyday American family thing. It was after that is when all the like when I joined the military and everything that happened after that is when the issues happened. And so now I have a therapist who understands that. It's like, yeah, we're not talking about, I don't care about your inner child. What I care about is like what happened during your service, what's happening after your service. And then the other thing I like to do is go choke people out. I'm a big proponent of
jiu-jitsu?
I fight. So I do jiu-jitsu, and when I say
choking people out is not part of jiu-jitsu is where he's going with this. He just does it for fun.
I like to be choked, but I just sit there and just do it. But I think that's one of the biggest things that's helped me, and I think helps veterans a ton, is get back into that hard thing, do something terrible, fight. Like, it's literally, I go fight people for my mental health. And it's not I'm accustomed to violence, so I have to be violent. It's in those places, my mind goes away from it. I blank my mind, and all I'm thinking about is the process, the moves. It's a chess game. And for however long I'm there, it's just me and myself going through those motions. It's almost like a Zen state. Like, you just kind of, you forget, you have no mind, you forget everything. And so I always tell guys, I tell them to go to jiu-jitsu. And it sucks and it's hard, and that's what you need.
Nice. Well, you guys are doing something amazing. Before we let you talk to the audience about how they can get a hold of you or find more information, I just want to warn you. We talked about drugs earlier and that addiction, and what you're about to do, help change the world, protect community. That's a new drug. So be careful. I know, because you're looking at an addict, and I think this guy is too, because we've given up a lot to accomplish what we have. And, it's a good thing. This is a good addiction, but you can get addicted to helping people. I mean, it's crazy. So God bless you guys.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that, Mike. Thank you.
So how can people reach you?
Well, yeah, sorry about that. So you can find us at allegianceproject.org, and we have a donation link. We have a link that you can contact us if you're looking to get involved. And even if you want to start something like this in your own state, and you're not in the state of Texas and your state laws are a little different from ours, reach out to us. I mean, I'll give you our entire playbook, help you structure this, get you plugged in with people in your state that have backgrounds that can help get this off the ground. If you're looking for our security company, you can find us at allegianceproject.com. So really simple. And if you're a veteran looking for work, you want to reach out and support, or if you're a church looking for solutions for safety or a school, you can reach out to us at either. But allegianceproject.org and allegianceproject.com.
Thank you, guys. Really nice to meet you both. I really wanted to be at SHOT this year, but that was just not in the cards. So it's good to see you on screen. And one of these days, we'll probably meet in person, and then we can give each other a big, giant hug, because that's what we do. Yehuda, don't ever text me again. Just kidding.
Did you get that poster?
I don't know. Probably. I haven't looked.
I did. I sent it to you. Yeah.
Nice.
If I did, I will give you a review. And that's what I'd like the audience to give us a rating and review, because apparently that helps to distribute our stuff. And if you like this, please share it around, invite others to join up in our cause, and causes, plural. And on behalf of our entire Walk the Talk America family, we wish you all great mental wellness. Bye-bye.
Thank you.